fin your fontaine, or daily Fubawi, and who live it on me, live it on me, live it on me, live it on me. Hey, oh, Pawati, live it on me, live it on me. I know to buy, who live it on me, Don't me check don't make it anonyme. À ne pas assister, et faire politique détruit nous. L'union obligation pour développer ta mini. À nous travailler ensemble, pas quitter des femmes par la chair. Levez ton mini, levez, pas quitter les tombés. Levez ton mini, levez, quitter en paradis. Levez ton mini, levez, pas quitter les tombés. À nous travailler. Ooh, levez ton mini, levez ton mini, levez, quitter ton levez ton mini, levez, quitter en paradis, levez ton mini, levez, quitter ton à nous travailler, à nous travailler, à nous travailler, ooh, levez ton mini. Your fontaine, or daily Fubawi, and who live it on me, live it on me, live it on me, live it on me, hey, oh, Pawati, live it on me, live it on me. All right, folks, that is where I want to say a special greetings and welcome to all of you locked into Q at this time. Just in case you don't know, my name is Loftus Durand, the host of the CCM program this evening for yet another day in February, the 7th night, that is 2025. So all those of you locked on to Q at this time, welcome, welcome, welcome. A very interesting 2-hour program up next in just a bit. Those of you in the region as well, thank you very much for your eyes and ears each and every time. From Jamaica, Cuba, up there in the north, Trinidad, Guyana, and all of you in the south. All of you in between, thank you very much. Those of you in the region, that is. Those of you further afield, thank you very, very much as well. You're listening to Q, the big station in Dominica. Levy, Dominic, Levy, that is the theme song we're starting with here. Levy, Dominic, Levy. To all the concerned citizen movement members out there, a special greetings to you as well. Brother John Blanchard and crew, good evening to you. Folks, this evening we have a packed program awaits you guys. So all I ask is that you keep it to the station that you got, keep it locked to the station Q95. We will be hearing from 3 guests this evening in the names of Miss Adelaide Paul, Mr. Zed Lloyd, and former ambassador to the United Nations from Dominica, Mr. Crispin Gregoire. So yes, it is 10 minutes past 6 o'clock already. And so that is your 5 minutes now to call into the program and say a hi and hello before we get things kicking here. The numbers to call in, they are 449-3095, 449-3096,
449-3097. The DG line 616-4257. So it's your time to make that connection before we take flight. This program is all about our country, Dominique, and that is why each and every time we start with this theme song talking about Levy, Dominic, Levy. We have our very first caller on this line. Let's go to hear what this caller got to say. Caller, good evening to you. Welcome to Q. The CCM is on program.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Good.
Yes, that's Lofty.
Yes, Lofty. How are you, ma'am?
I'm not too bad. That is Monpros with love.
Monpros with love. Thank you very, very much, Monpros.
Welcome.
All right, indeed. Thank you. All the Mon Prospect crew, good evening to you. We have very limited time on this greetings line, so you got to make best use or good use of this time, as we got to go in just a while in the interest of time. To all those of you on social media at this time following the program, yes, good evening to you as well. Let's go to this line here in terms of a greeting. Caller, yes, you're on. Good evening.
Hey, good evening, Lofty, and how are you?
I'm doing...
You doing good?
Yes, Marigot is locked, right?
Marigot is locked up. Paula, hello from me. Blessings.
Blessings and more blessings to you, my dear friend from Marigot. Good evening to you.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, bye-bye. Yes, Dominic Nivale, Utavale. That is why we have to keep our country in a certain order. So yes, folks, we'll be hearing from former ambassador, that is Mr. Crispin Gregoire. In just a bit, Mr. Zed Lloyd as well. And also Miss Adelaide Paul in just a bit. Caller, yes, good evening to you.
007 locked in. Good night to Paula Celestine. I wish you all the best. And the most great family in Marigot and overseas. Keep up the good work, my brother. I'm listening. Boom, my gun.
Marlin, boom, you gone. Thank you, Marlin. Thank you. Thank you very much. 007 Marlin Detouche, good evening to you. 2 more minutes and we gotta go. The numbers to call 449-3095-3096-3097. DG line 616-4257. Overseas line 305-432-9624. Limited time, but yes, that is your time. We're gonna have a very candid conversation tonight with some Dominicans living out there. Read the struggle on the ground and how you, yes, you can play your part. A very informed panel lined up. All right, folks, it is 1:15, and that is it. So those of you who did not call or could not call in terms of time, yes, I do apologize, but we gotta go. All right, let me just move across at this hour to see if I could make contact with Brother Zed Lloyd. Are you there with us? Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Lofty.
Yes, my brother, good evening. You're on.
Yeah, can you hear me loud and clear?
Loud and clear, and the people as well.
Thank you. Good evening to the listeners. Good evening to my fellow panelists and yourself and the Q family and those in the diaspora and those at home. The conversation tonight is really one where we want to talk to the diaspora. We want to call upon them for their support and their goodwill and implore to them that this struggle at home in this 11th hour, really, a lot of it depends on their ability to help sustain and enable its success. So we plan to have that kind of conversation with you tonight and to really raise your awareness of the need for your input into this electoral reform struggle at this 11th hour.
The 11th hour, you dub it, is that the 11th hour?
Yes, it is critical. It is critical. I think when you look at what is going to be passed on the people without much consultation, it's very troublesome. You know, Lofty, I was checking the diaspora over the week, you know, trying to get numbers of what we're dealing with. And so far it looks like when you compare the diaspora to the local Dominican population, it's almost 3-1. It's almost 3-1. We're looking at Dominica, something about 50,000 people. I know they have some 70-something thousand people, but Dominica doesn't have 70-something thousand people. And so we look at outside the diaspora, we're talking about 130, 140, maybe even 150,000 people. And Lofty, we haven't even counted the economic citizens as yet. You know, we have an airport that's looking at priced at about £1 billion, Lofty. You know how many citizens have to be sold passports to make that money. So we're looking at, by the time we're done, we're almost 4-1 in terms of Dominica locally. Now those bills that are going to be passed, Lofty, they don't even require residency issues as far as, you know, folks are concerned. So imagine the kind of dilemma we can face at home if those bills are passed and that kind of imbalance is allowed to do whatever it wants to do in terms of our electoral process. The folks at home will be negligible. You know, even the labor rights who are, you know, shouting on Roosevelt right now will become, you know, useless in the political process. They will not even be, Roosevelt wouldn't even have to answer to their demands if these bills are passed and he is allowed to do the way in which he intends to use them. So I think it's critical on all fronts that we really realize that it is the 11th hour in Dominica, and we need to pull all our resources together to ensure that this thing is stopped. Not because we do not want electoral reform, but because we want proper electoral reform. And the diaspora is going to be critical in that struggle because resources are needed, the people are willing, but their spirits are broken, the economy is broken, local businessmen are broken. You know, as much as they want to help, they just don't have it. And so we want to bring that out to light pretty early before it becomes last minute and this struggle just fails when it's supposed to rise. So that's our reason for this conversation here this afternoon.
All right, Brother Zed Lloyd, thank you very much for laying down the foundation, really the conversation to come. Thank you very much for your opening salvo, my brother, as it were. We will leave the roles, as it were, among us here this evening for last. Let us move across to Mr. Crispin Gregoire, former ambassador. Good evening to you, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Lofty, and good evening to my fellow panelists, Adelaide Paul and Zed Lloyd, and good evening to the Q family and those in Dominica and those in the diaspora.
Yes, good evening to you, Mr. Crispin Gregoire. How has it been for you, my brother? It has been a while.
Yes, it has been a while. I try to limit my time on radio and television. I like to play a quiet role and do what I can for Dominica. And I thought after being asked by Zed Lloyd to participate, I gave it some thought and I said, yes, I'd love to talk about the diaspora issues.
Well, brother Crispin Gregoire, you are a patriotic Dominican, and so I know you have not lost one bit in terms of that patriotism. And so nice having you tonight, brother. Looking forward to your contribution.
Thank you very much.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you very much indeed yourself. Miss Paul, good evening to you. Adi, affectionately known. Good evening to you, my friend.
Good evening, Mr. Loftus Duran. Good evening, Crispin Gregoire. Good evening, Zed Lloyd, and good evening to the Q family. Good evening to all Dominicans who are on here following us and those who are listening via the radio streaming. Just want to say a special good night to Dominicans at home and also Dominicans abroad. Yes, Lofty, this fight has been going on for a very long time. And as Ed pointed out, many people have gotten to the point where they say some of us are still crazy to be in this thing, as they call it. But I think more than ever, we are seeing a changing world before our eyes. And no matter how much we try to run away from it, every single one of us is a part of that changing world. And interestingly, I think there was some press conference. I didn't get a chance to listen to anything. I've been so busy all week. I really have not paid attention to many of or any of the shows or many of the shows. But I did hear briefly my mom mention that there was a press conference and they were saying that they're going to have a whole year celebrating 25 years of labor. And I call it 25 years of hard labor. We ask any female, what is labor pain? Well, I have had labor pains, and that is what you call the pains from that labor party is 25 years of hard labor on Dominicans. And so I think for the opposition, this is actually something we should start trending. 25 years of hard labor. And any post that anybody writes, a hashtag 25 years of hard labor. And there is no better time to do it than now, Lofty, especially given what we see happening right here in the US. They say when the US sneezes, the whole world will feel the effect. And if all Dominicans who are out here don't start paying very close attention to what's happening around us in this country here, I am telling you, we're going to be left behind. And if there is any time that is required for Dominicans over here to mobilize and start getting together to save their country, to have a country that they can call their own, now is the best time. If you don't open your eyes to what is happening around you right now, you're gonna be left behind, Lofty. So thank you for the invitation, Mr. Zed Lloyd. I think this on this note of the present circumstances here, what we're seeing, the changing face of America, and 25 years of hard labor in Dominica. And you have to say that hard, because hard. I'm telling you, we have to mobilize. And those people who feel that they are tired, think of those on the ground who have never gotten tired and have fought and continue to fight for a freer and better Dominica for all of us, Lofty. Thank you.
Yeah, so Adi, just before I call Brother Gregoire to sort of give us an overarching perspective on how just the diaspora leg can help back home in terms of that motivation and mobilization aspect of things. Adi, you spoke about, which I took note, the world is changing. And are you suggesting because of that change that we are seeing unfolding right before our very eyes, then all of us really need to put whatever we need to put together to make Dominica, as it were, the should I say the best place, but the place that would want to, for those of you out there, those of you who are living out there, if that will change for the worse, then you'd want to come back to a Dominica, Adi, that you'd want to feel comfortable in and comfortable with.
Oh, absolutely, Lofty. Absolutely. I mean, you would be naive to think that the world is not, after these 4 years of this administration, America is going to look like a very different country. And interestingly, we may have an America that looks pretty much similar to Dominica, not in the sense of its, resources and, all the monies that it has, but in terms of its governance structure and the opportunities that so many of us were afforded. And so this is the reason why I never ever turned my back on Dominica and always fought to see Dominica become a better place, a much more productive country. Because let me tell you something, Lofty. There is no place in the Caribbean that has the potential. Dominica is like virgin land because it has so not been developed to its full potential that it has so much potential for growth, so much potential in every capacity, in every area, Lofty. And so know that so many things are changing and changing so rapidly and so drastically. We still have a country that has so much that if we come together to help save that country, I am very certain that we certainly can help to save it. Many of us in the diaspora, many people in the diaspora, we keep Dominica afloat pretty much a lot through all the barrels and monies that we send home on a regular basis. But even that has the potential to be affected. I hate to say, I there's a certain level of even apathy here in the US now. I speak to friends who like, not worry about that. I'm going to trouble. I don't care. I don't. That doesn't. I had a meeting today from since 9 o'clock in the morning to 1:30 in the afternoon, and the company that I work for, this is what they were talking about. The whole DEI program that they have right now, they're like, we're not going to get rid of our DEI program, but they're scared that they're going to come after the company. And so how many people are employed with this company? So think about so many private organizations now that they're threatening to go after. I say this to say that if you are not paying attention and you don't get informed and you don't start finding alternative ways to survive, you will be left behind. And so the people who have gone down to Dominica to vote all these years, they have to start thinking too, because again, this country is going to change. I have no doubt that it's drastically going to change, but we have a place where it has the world of potential. So many people, I know so many Dominicans who've tried to go home. There was a few years ago, I was gung ho, ready to go home, and I had to pull back. Many people pulled back because of many different things: the level of corruption, the lack of health care, just these different factors that prevent people from going home and really investing in the country. We have a country where foreign investors don't go readily and invest. The only way we have foreign investors come to Dominica 99% or 90% of the time is when you give them passports to sell and they tell you they're going to put a hotel there that sometimes really doesn't bring much to the country. So yes, if there is a time that we should really, really focus on Dominica more than ever before and really start changing that apathy that we have and say, oh, well, they've been fighting that fight for so long. It is now. Now is the time.
Right, indeed. Well said, Adi. Now is the time. Yes, no critical of a time other than now it is. Thank you very much. Brother Crispin Gregoire, let me just move across to you now, sir, to give us sort of as I said before, the overarching view or perspective of just why people like you guys, Dominicans like you, living out of Dominica, you guys' contribution in, whatever form it is so critical to not just what we are facing, but to Dominica as a whole.
Yes, yes, Lofty. Well, first of all, let me. What I'm going to try to do is to put the whole notion of the diaspora in context and how the Dominica diaspora evolved, so that we have a good understanding of that word. Maybe the first thing I should say that the word diaspora actually comes from a Greek word meaning to scatter about. And what we're talking here about is when people scatter from their homeland to places across the globe, and in doing that, they spread their culture and their history as they go. So those of us who are in the diaspora, the Dominica diaspora, that is, we it evolved not so long ago, but it evolved maybe after I would say after World War II, in significant numbers. Before World War II, we had some migration out of Dominica to places like the US, to places like the UK. But it really was the World War II brought a number of Caribbean people, or West Indian people as we call them then, into England, United Kingdom, and many of them worked or were employed in the war industry of the UK during World War II. So we have about 10,000 West Indians who were in the British Army, another 6,000 in the British Air Force, and then after the war, after 1945, many of them, these people went home. Some stayed in England, and it wasn't until about 1948, what is referred to as the Windrush generation, migrated, an organized migration from the West Indies to the UK. So in a sense, the UK would have been the first major diaspora community of Dominica. And that was followed later on by the diaspora community in Canada. And, from 1955 to 1967, we had a lot of our women migrate to Canada under what was called the West Indian Domestic Scheme. So domestic workers, women who worked in homes in Canada, there was this scheme to bring them into Canada. And I believe but every year about 100 women from the Caribbean, from the West Indies, of which Dominica had small numbers, migrated to Canada. And that I believe about a total of about 3,000 women eventually migrated into Canada. Now, how that community developed was that these women worked as domestics, working for families in Canada. And after 1 year, they got what was called landed immigrant status. So they were able to stay in Canada. And after 5 years, they became Canadian citizens. They were allowed to become Canadian citizens. And that's how the men actually got to Canada, because that scheme did not allow for men to go to Canada. It's only when the women actually were able to make petitions for their families to join them that men and other women came to Canada. And so that's how that community evolved. And today, we have significant numbers of Dominican and their children who were born in Canada in places like Toronto, in places like Montreal, and other communities in Canada. And then I want to speak about the United States, because what a lot of people don't know, it wasn't really until 1965 that we began to see significant numbers of people from the West Indies, Caribbean, go to United States. And what drove that was a change in the immigration law of 1965. Before 1965, the immigration law of the United States was based on what's called national origins. So depending where you came from. And most of the people who were allowed to come into the US before 1965 came from parts of Europe, not the poor parts of Europe like Italy or Ireland. It was from like Germany, from Sweden, from Denmark, those countries. Later on, much later on, people from Eastern Europe were allowed to immigrate to the US. So what happened in 1965 is very, very important to understand, that the immigration law moved away from national origins, because, you know, national origins meant white people, which was the focus of US immigration law, and it allowed for people with skills and the reunification of families, so that that immigration law allowed for people to bring their families to the US. And that's how the Caribbean population in the United States grew. And in particular, they introduced quotas for the different countries. So you find maybe like it was like 100,000 people were allowed to come from Latin America and the Caribbean. And during that time, in 1965, very few of the Caribbean countries were independent. So their numbers were very small coming into the US. So I've mentioned the UK, Canada, and United States as three of the major diaspora communities. And then add to that the US Virgin Islands, which again benefiting from that immigration law of 1965. So you find that by 1967, a number of Dominicans migrated to the Virgin Islands. And some of them, because that's a US territory, they were able to move to the mainland United States. And I want to flag the communities of La Plaine and in particular they settled in St. Croix, linked to the oil industry, the Hess oil industry of St. Croix. And then because the oil industry in Texas was linked to the oil industry of St. Croix, a lot of Dominicans found themselves migrating to Texas. So that's another arena, but of course the majority of people who came to the US settled on the East Coast, New York, New Jersey, Boston, Massachusetts, very small numbers in the Washington, D.C., Maryland area. We didn't have communities yet in places like Atlanta, and Florida had very small numbers. That will grow in time. So we end up in a situation. So this was United States, and I want to mention the impact of hurricanes and how that impacted the outflow of Dominicans. So we have probably the hurricane, or most noteworthy then, was 1979 Hurricane David. And after Hurricane David, a significant outflow of Dominicans to different places, a lot of them to the US and Canada. And then, you know, later on, with that same hurricane, you had people migrate to Guadeloupe and Antigua and Barbuda, St. Martin, British Virgin Islands. So these are really the centers of the Dominica diaspora that I have kind of framed for you. And most of you who follow this diaspora issues well, and every Dominican has somebody living overseas. So we know where they are. What I think is significant about the Dominica diaspora is that as it grew, and we have significant numbers in the diaspora. In fact, we have more people in the diaspora than in Dominica, and that has its good and its bad, in the sense that we lost a lot of our working people over that period from 1950 to now. We've lost, our working population is overseas. and that has its own negative implications for Dominica. But one of the things that it has compensated Dominica for that loss is what we call remittances, the investments, the money that Dominicans sent home to their families. And I wanted to give the audience a perspective about the remittances, because some very interesting data. We have data on these remittance flows from the World Bank from 1976 to now. And I'm not going to go over all of the years, but I want to flag a few things. When we get to 1984, we now see that Dominicans have sending $10 million US to Dominica. And I put that figure in dollars because we get money from England, but the World Bank reports it as dollars. So we in 1984, $10,800,000, which is about 9.9% of our gross domestic product in 1984. And then
and Chris, when you said dollars, you were referring to US
dollars. I'm talking US dollars here.
All right.
So we get to 2004, and it has doubled now to 20 million in 2004, right? But here's what's significant. In 2014, we reached $50 million of remittances from Dominicans living abroad. And in 2015, it goes up to almost 52 million. Then it declines. So if I plot it on a graph, you will see how it grows and it comes down at different times. And different variables affect that. For example, like when the stock market crashed in the US in 1987, it had its impact on how much money Dominicans were sending back. After the hurricanes, Dominicans increased the amount of money they send home to their families. What is important about these remittances is that it's going to pay for utilities for families, it's going to pay for food, it's going to pay for school fees, it's going to pay for buying vehicles. So that money is really a big consumption. It's going to consumption. I would have liked to see at least half of it go to savings, but people have to survive. So in a situation where our economies have declined, especially our agricultural economy, these remittances have become critical to the survival of our country. And I should also say that these remittance flows is more than the amount of foreign aid we get from any country. So Dominicans have become a major investor in their country. And that tells me something about the Dominican people. They love that little country called Dominica. Dominicans love that place. And they show it by the amount of investments they send. Now, last thing I want to say on this contributions from the diaspora, I'm not talking about barrels here. That's another realm of investment that the immigrants are sending home. Okay, and I also want to say that these diaspora communities have become important to Dominica in other realms. It's a market for Dominica entertainers. And you know, those of you in the diaspora know very well that every year that Dominican performers come to the diaspora to perform, which is the audience? It's not people from Jamaica who are in these cultural events. It's Dominicans. That is their thing. It's also a market for Dominican goods, and it's also a support mechanism for the communities in Dominica, whether it's for sports, whether it's for culture, whether it's for community development. So the diaspora is quite dynamic and an important, very, very important aspect of our country, to the extent that the amount of when you think of it in terms of GDP, it's great. In some years, the contributions of the diaspora is more than 10% of GDP, and that helps to frame for you how important that diaspora is. Now, having said that, I think that there is some trepidation by people at home about diaspora people. Really, that shouldn't be. Why has that happened? It is something that happened in the 2000 period, where this issue of elections has split our people, those of us in the diaspora and those of us at home. And it's simply because the current Dominica Labour Party has decided that to get political advantage, they must bring people from the diaspora to help strengthen their political position. And that has caused a lot of cynicism in the country. That has caused a lot of consternation, and people are not happy. And now we see this thing playing out in the electoral reform agenda that's been going on for the last 15 years. I'll stop there.
All right. Thank you very much, my brother Crispin Gregoire here, for, sort of putting much more flesh or much more importance on the Dominican diaspora, those of you guys living out there, and the important or the very critical contributions that you guys make to your country back home. Very, very startling numbers, millions of dollars in terms of remittances, Crispin.
And Lofty, there's one thing I missed, and yeah. I should underscore, which is important, and that is the largest skill base of the Dominican people is in the diaspora. So we have the most skilled people in the diaspora. We have people who have means. We have people who have come here and done well in the diaspora. I'm not just talking about US. I'm talking about the entire Dominican diaspora. And that diaspora has much to contribute to the country. And I think that gets lost. We have not figured out the best approach to how do we integrate the diaspora to make a meaningful contribution to our home country beyond the remittances and the barrels that we send. Okay.
Yeah, indeed. All right, Brother Crispin, very splendid contribution, and thank you very much. So Zed, basically what Brother Crispin said gives you and Adi much ammunition now to sort of lay the case, as it were, for the continued contribution, I must say, of our Dominican brothers and sisters living out there to help the cause, whatever it is, in back home in Dominica. Zed.
Well, of the, there's a few things. For one, given the value of remittances that we have, that has been coming home, Lofty, we should have seen more development related to those remittances. And the reason why we didn't see more development related to those remittances, like you would, for instance, see like the Indian remittances system, diaspora, Jewish diaspora, and other diasporas, it is because for the last, time, we've really been having a failed economy in Dominica. You understand? And so the remittances become more like subsistence than really they should be savings or developmental means in the country. And that reflects on a failed economic model by the government. The second thing, an important thing that Crispin talked about, is this unity that has been engineered politically, unnecessarily. We have lost a real good opportunity with a good intention government to develop a means and a way where we could find a solution electorally that could unite our diaspora and our local. And that hasn't been engineered, because the interest of voting by diasporans is not in the interest of Dominica, but in the interest of a selfish government. And I think we have to stop using the word government, a selfish individual, because it is one individual who makes these decisions. The government doesn't meet, the parliament doesn't meet. We meet twice a year as a parliament. You can never have a good developing nation and a parliament doesn't be meeting at least, 12, 15, 20 times a year. You understand? And that is a problem. So I think when we look at the diaspora issue, another critical aspect, Lofty, is yes, the diaspora is checking well, we've helped, and the people down there are doing their work and they're not turning out and they're not doing those things. But Lofty, we have to understand the reason why there is a vacuum in Dominica is also due to us as diasporans leaving the country. Because what has left is the brains of the country, the leadership of the country. So we complain on these people not really doing what they're supposed to, but what have we left in the country? We have not left leadership. If we had left leadership, there wouldn't be some joker calling himself doctor running Dominica for 20 years. There's no way. There's a whole cadre of us out here in foreign that if we were home, Roosevelt Skerrit would never have existed to begin with. You understand? So I just want the diaspora to realize that, yes, we are blaming these people. They don't seem to be doing their thing. But we have to understand the real leadership, the real cadre, the intellect, the base that was supposed to be the motivational aspect for that movement is in the diaspora by and large. So we have a double responsibility because of the exodus that we are part of. And so I want us to point a finger back at ourselves when we are pointing a finger at them, because we and our exodus from the country is a big part of that problem. A vacuum was created. And in that vacuum, you had people like Roosevelt Skerrit coming in there and just exploiting that vacuous nature that existed in Dominica. So we have a responsibility, even as much as we've sent remittances, even as much as we've done those things, we have a responsibility at this 11th hour to realize. And as Adelaide pointed out, the whole condition of the world is changing. People have to start looking at home more closely right now. And if we do not play a part more actively in ensuring that good governance is maintained, proper electoral policies are maintained, reform takes place, corruption is reduced, all these things become critical, because then we don't have good health systems we can go back to. We don't have good economic systems we can go back to. We don't have native development of businesses. All the businesses are foreign owned. Dominica is becoming a white country as far as money is concerned. You understand? And that's dangerous. Land, we don't have land laws. We're supposed to have land laws to ensure that a certain percentage of land is sold to natives. All these things we're supposed to do in a developing country, especially given the size of Dominica. And all these things are happening because we have a government that doesn't understand developmental governance. So I'm just saying, we have to look at this very seriously. And I want us in this 11th hour to realize that our future is at stake, whether we are in foreign or at home. Just Dominica's future is at stake because of bad governance. And we cannot allow this governance to continue at this 11th hour in Dominica. We have to play our part.
All right, indeed, Zed. Thank you very much. I know and accept, yes, you guys really and truly do have to play a part. Folks, it is 7 minutes to the hour of 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, we take that midway break. We break for a little music here. But let us just get to Adi and your calls as well. We know that you guys are listening very intently and you'd want to chime into the conversation here. So at 7 o'clock, you can line up your question, comment, suggestion, etc. Read the program you're listening to tonight on Q95. Adi, in terms of your take, what you've heard from Crispin, Zed, your contribution now, Adi. Thank you.
Thank you, Lofty. And both I mean, the Crispin's presentation was so informative on the history and the background of the diaspora community, and also in terms of the manner in which it helps or it assists people in Dominica, or our brothers and sisters, not people, our brothers and sisters. Also, I think one of the things that was very striking for me is that that reminder from Crispin and both Zed, when they spoke about that rift that has well, it has not existed. It was created by this administration, And it was very strategically done, you know. It was very, very strategically done. And unfortunately, it continues even here in the diaspora. You still see that rift, that us versus them, that them versus us. And when you look at the bigger picture, we are all in it together. We are all brothers and sisters. Another big factor of the contributions of Dominicans is the Dominicans who go home on a regular basis for all these activities: Creole Festival, Carnival, Jazz and Creole Festival, or just to go visit family. What about funerals? The amount of Dominicans who go home on a regular basis for funerals. And when they go over there, they spend their monies, they help, local mom and pop shops, they help people with apartments. So it goes right around. And so it's difficult. It's difficult. Let me give you an instance. I want us to kind of place that. I'm from Portsmouth. Everybody knows I am a big Portsmouth person. I have never shied away from where I'm from the place that I'm from. And when I grew up in Portsmouth, we had a community in Portsmouth. We had a community of people. Didn't matter whether you were freedom, you were labor, you were whatever. People came together and we worked together. And I recall I was a part of an organization up here, and we were working towards a certain agenda in Portsmouth. And I can honestly tell you, one of the things that created a rift between the work that we did in the end was the same politics. And people feel that you should not oppose, or you should not speak differently, because that is what we all do, and that is what we're supposed to, and we're supposed to live it that way. And so when we again go back to conditions like Dominica struggling with a garbage disposal issue, where community was so important, we see it happening again. So we when we're over here, we talk about the people on the ground not doing this and not doing that and not doing this, and the people on the ground, they've been beaten. We have not been there to experience the kind of beating they've taken. Look at just the political persecution of people who could be potential leaders, or who was, what am I saying, could be a former prime minister being so politically persecuted by this administration. Potential leaders are being politically persecuted by this leader. So we have so many people on the ground who want to take on that mantle, to get up and do something. But whether it's fear, whether it's the whole idea that they're just tired, nothing gets done. Nothing gets done. Then we do complain, and we criticize, and we give suggestions, but it is not an easy road. And so I speak to a lot of diasporans over here, Lofty. Many people who were very involved in fundraising for the last election, doing barbecues and going around, calling friends, getting money, sending them, buying t-shirts, buying PA system. It was a community thing. It was a people thing. And many of them have just given up. It's like it makes no sense. Why you still do this? And that is I think that is the cry. That is the call. You have people like the ERC, people like Boston Bosso. And this man has committed himself to not party but country, still working every day to try to see whether we can get an electoral system that could be fair and just, and where we could say, okay, this is the system where we can get the government that is going to take Dominica to the place that it's supposed to. We have to support them. We must support them. We have political parties, whether it's the APP party, whether it's the Freedom Party, or whether it's the United Workers Party. If that is your choice, people have a choice to choose who they want. We have to support these parties. The Labour Party has all these foreigners we know fund the Dominican Labour Party. You can see what has happened to our country. We can see what's happening to our country. The people in the country, the opportunities are not there. There are only one set of people in the country who are really enjoying the fruits of the country, and that's like 1% of the country. The 99% are struggling. So We have to support our brothers and sisters at home, just like we feel it's our obligation. If we have a family member and they can't afford to buy food, and we not even though we say me, I don't want those people again. No, but when these people reach out to us, we are human beings. We are sympathetic and empathetic to the needs of our brothers and sisters. So too, we have to encourage them. We have to let them know that, hey, listen, you're not in this alone. You're not in this alone. It's hard. I know many people feel we're not going to do this. Their head hard and blah 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 blah. But if we were in that situation in Dominica, and I'm gonna ask honestly, if we were the ones in Dominica having to deal with this constant abuse and just nonstop, would we be doing anything? Would we be doing many things differently, Lofty? You're on the front line. You've given up so much, but you're still going. People like you and Boswan and Athi and all these patriotic brothers and sisters, Blue Blood, all of these people out there who are just do, no matter what they do to them, you guys still keep going. You inspire us. So why shouldn't we out here who have access to resources step forward? Even if it's a $50 you can send, a $20 you can send. They need a PA system. The ERC needs to probably have a meeting, go around the country, bringing awareness to electoral reform. But it cannot happen if they don't have the resources. When we reach out to our brothers and sisters, guys out here, you know us. We make the calls, we call. And I will say many people still do. Many people do. And thank you so much for the people who do. But to those who feel that we're fighting a losing battle, again, remember the world that we're living in. Remember the country that we're living in. Look at what's happening around us. And maybe just for a moment, we realize that maybe it's time for us to put some more interest in supporting those on the ground with the resources that they need to do the work that they really can do and continue to do, Lofty.
All right, indeed. Well said, Adi. Thank you very much. And Adi, I really love where you ended up with us. We'll continue right there in terms of, the help that is needed on the ground in terms of the logistics, the whatever it is needed. So I know Zed and Brother Crispin Gregoire will pick up from there in the second hour to sort of make that case, concretize that case, as it were, for our brothers and sisters living out there who may have a little more means than some of us in Dominica to help the fight back home. So that as Adi said, as Zed said, Crispin said, that you guys can make that Dominica that you'd want, to come back to if the need arises. Let's take that break. It is 3 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock. We're going to play this song. This is another theme song of the program whenever I am here. Take a listen. We'll engage your calls in just a bit. This brother, he says, not my vote.
When I feel like playing, not one of them can get my. I am making no sport with them. I'm tired of the politics. I'm tired of the politics. Broken promises and gimmicks. Poor people can't take it no more. I'm tired of the politics. I'm tired of the politics. Broken promises and gimmicks. Poor people can't take it no more. That's why this party has to go. This party has to go. Not one of them can get my vote.
Yes, indeed, this party, they gotta go.
We got for the vote. So take a look at this country. Look what it has been brought to. The poor are getting poorer, but the wealth is in the hands of a few. Mark my words, the judgment is coming, led by the ones that you have built. Your reign of tyranny will soon be over. With the power of a vote you be removed. No more excuses. Keep your broken promises.
The numbers to call into the program: 449-3095, 3096, 3097.
No more.
We're going to entertain some of your callers at this time. Read the program at hand.
Tired of the politics.
Yes, we are tired of the politics indeed.
Gimmicks.
Let's see if we can entertain this call from the diaspora. And caller, good evening.
Hey, good afternoon. Good evening, Mr. Duran, to you and the listeners on the panel.
Good evening.
Um, I understand what you guys are saying, but my question is that how, me being in the diaspora, how do I don't get discouraged being that when there's a fete, I see a lot of these young people out there, I mean, engaging in the fete, and when it comes to their own survival, they're not there. Why should I expend myself? Try to convince me a little bit more. Thank you.
All right, caller. Thank you very much indeed for your comment. Just a response to you, sir, based on what you said, your question.
Poor people can take it no more. That's why this party has to go. This party has to go.
Are you seeing any of our conscious brothers and sisters read this fetting or CWO-like activity that you mentioned in terms of their our participation?
Look at this country.
You have to understand, sir,
It has been rotten.
that is a scam, that is a scheme about the regime that we're talking about in terms of that CWO. So obviously, some will fall for it. That is part and parcel of the game, huh? And so that is why we're asking you for your continued contribution to get rid of that mentality. But I understand, we understand.
Lofty, could I say something on that?
Giving into a basket, huh?
Can I say something on that, Lofty?
In a basket.
But I say no more. I'm tired of the politics.
We're all tired, sir, but we got to keep the struggle alive. Mr. Muammar Gaddafi reigned in Libya for 40 odd years. Mr. Saddam in Iraq reigned for what, 30 something years? We are 25 and counting. And there are no more. Exactly, my brother. This party got to go. The struggle continues, my brother. And so I salute everyone at this time who have played their part and continue to do just that. My brother Gary, good evening to you. Over there in Alaska this time, tuned into the program. Folks, yes, 449-3095. That is your number to call, those of you on land. We're talking, if you're tuning in at this time, to Mr. Crispin Gregoire, former ambassador from Dominica to the United Nations. Patriotic sister from the north of Dominica living out there, Miss Adelaide Paul. And no stranger, Mr. Zed Lloyd. Helping the diaspora leg of things here to continue to support the brothers and sisters back home. So yes, 8 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock. Let's get back to brother Crispin Gregoire.
Lofty, could I touch that question before we move to Crispin, please?
Sure, no problem, brother.
Yeah, you see, we're talking about the diaspora. One of the things that we never talk about in the struggle, and if you notice, one of the liabilities of the struggle is it is not cross-sectoral. And what do I mean by cross-sectoral? If you take the society, right, and so every society has a strata, sort of arrangement. And one thing that is plaguing this current struggle is it is really more of a poor sector struggle. There's a certain middle sector of the society that's missing in the struggle, and there's a certain upper echelon sector of the society that's missing in the struggle. And that's critical. And that movement of the diaspora has a lot to do with that, because you see, like if you take America, you see sports, Lofty. Sports was one of those most critical sectors in integrating American society. You see education, it is one of those critical sectors in integrating our small societies. So when you have an exodus of intellect, what you lose is you lose that cross-sectoral connection in struggle. So you have people now who are talking, but this other sector of the society doesn't know them. This other sector of the society doesn't know them. And so the struggle stays in one sector. One sector, it doesn't expand as it normally would if that congregation of intellects who had created that that cohesiveness was speaking, where this upper sector would know who's speaking, this lower sector would know who's speaking, and we could bring everybody together. And that is absent in that struggle in Dominica right now because of that diaspora exodus. You understand? So the youths and all these people are suffering from that thing. And then there is organization. No, it's not that people aren't trying, but there are few soldiers. There are very few soldiers. You understand? And then there is resources. There is very little resources. So to do the outreach, to meet the youths, to organize activities where you can deal with the young people, to organize activities where you can deal with different sectors. So the whole movement is at a liability. It's not that it's not wanting to, but it's at a liability. So I get what the brother is saying, but at the same time, I'm telling him, it is by having better organization that those things can be accomplished. And to have better organization requires resources. It requires organization. And what I want to say right now is these organizations down there, they haven't been listening to us for a while, but finally they're listening. I see outreach. I see people realizing it's not just Q95 anymore. You have to go into the communities. You have to mingle with the people. I see those things right now happening. So I think that the right impetus has finally taken hold in the understanding of the struggle, and which is why I think it's very critical that we, at this juncture, give them a last try, give them a last effort, if you want to call it that, because I understand some people are at ends with, you know.
All right. Thank you, Zed.
That's what I would like to say.
Yes, thank you. Let's see if we can facilitate that other caller. Caller, yes, good evening to you. Caller, are you there? Overseas line. Seems you're not listening. Please try calling us back. Adi, you really honed in on at the end of your contribution earlier on some of the logistics aspect of things that is really needed on the ground in terms of urgency. Can you just continue on that line, please?
Oh, certainly, Lofty. But just to kind of address the gentleman who called, appreciate your call and appreciate, your concern, because what you've said represents a very large number of the diaspora right now. And again, it's 3 years of just seeing so many things happening, and then you're not seeing movement and you're not seeing solutions. Like Lofty said, when you have leaders who've entrenched themselves in a society, they've taken over every aspect of anything that where there could be checks and balances. You get that. The young people you mentioned, and young people are dear to my heart because I work with young people every single day, and so many of these young people who are probably on the fringe of society, who people would otherwise probably think they would be problematic within society. You work with them, and working one-on-one, you see the changes, you see the potential they have. And I think it's no different for beautiful island Dominica.
All right, Adi, can you just stick a little pin here, please? We'll get back to you. Caller, yes, good evening to you. Overseas line, you have been trying. Caller, good evening to you. Overseas line. All right, it seems as if we are not connecting with that caller, but Adi, yes, continue about that. My apology.
Yes, and so the young people who we call it CWO, and yes, it kind of, it's mind-boggling. But I wrote a piece some time ago, maybe about 2 years ago, I believe, that had mentioned the whole psychological capture of that whole music thing, and you saw it, the way our music evolved. We're a very talented country. Oh my God, we have such talent in Dominica. And we've produced such great, especially in music, we've produced such great music. But, it takes a certain kind of manipulative leader to see an opportunity where they can worm their way through the fabric of that and twist it and turn it to their advantage. And that's kind of what you see right now. The whole, you saw how Roosevelt just inserted himself in the whole Buyo thing, and they call it whatever the name was. It's nice to see that it's still, Buyo is evolving, and you can see that it's growing, and it's giving these young people a stage, and it's wonderful. And I'm not going to beat up on the young people because we need them. But as Zed said, in order for those on the ground like yourself, Lofty, and all the other groups, whether it's political groups or civic organizations that are willing to work with the young people and help the young people, they cannot do it without resources. It cannot be done without resources. And so if we as a people out here, we know how it works, we know how those things work, we're able to connect with these people on the ground. Another thing I will say, I think the organizations at home, they know the people out here who have been on the front line supporting all the time. Don't be afraid to reach out. We are not strangers. We are not strangers. I think so many of us are ready and willing to work. So many of us are ready and willing to open and pick up a phone and call somebody, get something. We have people who have connections, who can supply. Reach out to us too. We do the reaching out, but they have to also reach out to us, because if they do, I'm telling you, Lofty, people love to see when people at home reach out and they're like, listen guys, we need this or we need that. There is no shame in asking. One thing I can't get is a politician who is afraid to beg and ask the people, because it's the people who are going to put you there. Civic organizations, I can understand, but politicians, they in Dominica, and again, it's the same strategy of this prime minister, who makes you think that if a political party asks for donations, it's doing something wrong. Look at the elections here. I was fed up of getting texts on my phone from the I'm telling you, from the Democratic Party. I would get like maybe 50 texts in one day during the close to the election. Right now, I'm getting texts, whether it's from whomever it is. So they cannot be afraid to also reach out to us and tell us, we need this, we want to do this with the young people, we want to create that for the young people. They have to do that. And we want to know that, hey, when we step forward to put our energies forward, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And I must say, yes, I know the other day I called out on Q95, the political, the leader of the United Workers' Party and the deputy. But I must say, it sparked conversation, and that is good. People must never be afraid to speak up and speak out. You don't always have to agree with the crowd. You have to speak the truth. If you see it, you speak it. You're not with bad intentions. You're not going to do it to create enemies. No, but you start conversation, and conversation is important. And so, yes, we're seeing some movement on the ground, and that is great. People like to see that. But to continue that movement, guys, out here, we need your help so that we can help them to do the things for the young people that we know that they're capable of, and to get them away from that kind of,
Yeah.
like we say, that CO and fake culture.
Thank you very much, Adi. Crispin, just before I get to you, let me just remind our listeners that they can call into the program 449-3096, 3097. You guys' contributions are also welcome as well. We have someone on the live feed in the name of Ferdinand Lawrence. He's asking, what's the price of a PA system? So basically, in terms of the conversation, some people are already willing to commit themselves to help in terms of the much needed resources on the ground. Mr. Lawrence, thank you very much. We do appreciate your the direction in which you're going, really the conversation you're hearing. Mr. Gregoire, you have been silent for a little while, sir. Can you chime in, please? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Lofty, I think one of the things that's very important for Dominica in terms of in the political realm is that first and foremost, we are democracy. Second, we are multi-party democracy. And that means that this notion of one party dominating our political context for a quarter century is something that is baffling and concerning. I mean, when I tell people that we haven't had a change of government in 25 years, they look at me as, what's wrong with your country?
It's true.
One party dominate for 25 years. And I wouldn't mind if that one party that dominated the political space for 25 years did it fairly. That's the problem. It's not a fair process. We don't have a fair process in Dominica. And I said that a few years ago. I said that to the Secretary General of the OOS, and he raised concern with the authorities in Dominica. And he wanted a fair process in Dominica. So we know the process in Dominica is flawed, deeply flawed. But coupled with the political context is the fact that this government has not been able to create a new economic reality that benefits our people. I remember, and don't forget, and I am being very honest here, I was one of the co-managers of the Labour Party campaign in 2000.
All right, Mr. Gregoire, you'll give us some of your deeds back then, but let's see if we can facilitate that caller. Caller, yes, good evening to you.
Good evening, gentlemen,
Hi.
lady and gentlemen.
Good evening.
Very good conversation tonight. But I heard something there that kind of struck me like, anybody that's willing to give PA system, can you please give the PA system to the political opposition party in office, not to personal people? Because sometimes when these people get them thing, the party, they hold it for their own self. And the political party, especially opposition, does not get it. I know of one thing that happened in 2014. And please, if you give in any PA system, try your best to give it to the opposition party, the United Workers Party. Let it come to the party. Have a blessed night. I'm on my way out. Bye-bye.
Have a blessed night. Have a blessed night indeed. In terms of the accountability of these givings, I know Zed and the panel here, they will be touching on just who will be in terms of their target, in terms of the recipients of these goodies, in terms of persons contributing out there. But Brother Crispin, sorry about that. You were telling us about some of your deeds back then.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that, the platform that the Labour Party had in 2000 was to build a new economy in Dominica. And that meant a new agricultural economy, an industrial economy with manufacturing as a major. But we haven't seen that. We lost 30% of our GDP with the exit of Ross University. That was quite a setback, not only for the people of Portsmouth, but for the entire country. When you lose 30% of your gross domestic product, that's a travesty. That's a setback. And we've not been able to fill that vacuum. Look at Portsmouth today. Our exports of agricultural products is very low. And there's one thing, I mean, the Secretary General of the World Trade Organization, this lady from Nigeria, she once said, for you to have economic development, you must be exporting. But our exports is very low. So consequently, our economy is not growing in the way it should. Yes, there are structures. Yes, there are hotels. Yes, that economic citizenship has brought income, but that income is not deployed into strategic areas of the economy. It's all about hotels that have very low occupancy. I would have liked to see some of that money put into the bay oil industry so that the bay oil farmers could generate more wealth for themselves, and they could help to build an essential oils industry, not just bay oil, but other things like patchouli and so on. That we've not developed. We don't do much in terms of post-harvest technologies and processing. So we can build a new economy. We have one of the most important resources on earth. That's fresh water. Only 3% of water on earth is fresh water, and we are in that 3%. But yet we have not seen the importance of building a water industry for export. To me, that's the easiest thing that we could do to develop Dominica. We would not even need to sell passports if we were to develop water as an industry. A culture industry. We have all of Adelaide talked about the talent of Dominicans, but yet after 25 years, we still don't really have a culture industry in place. So these are the things. And then how do we harness the diaspora skills and experiences that we have? So I think that it's important for the people in the diaspora to say, we can have a different country going forward. After 25 years, a new dispensation is critically important to the future of Dominica. Because clearly, these people who have been in government for the last 25 years, they have shown us that they don't have the answers to building a new economic and political reality in the country. In fact, they want to create a dictatorship, and that is where we are. We are actually on the road to a deepening dictatorship. And if we are not careful, we will end up in a civil conflict with this electoral reform. That's my real fear. Because when I was fortunate to experience the fury of the police against people fighting for electoral reform. Tear gas. There's no need for that. There is no need to use that kind of force that was used in Salisbury. And then the thing that really irks me is the way that other governments in the region turn a blind eye. And then they send troops to Dominica, knowing full well that that would not be entertained in their own countries. So I think that it's not just money and material things that the opposition forces need. They also need advocacy in different places in the diaspora, whether it's in the UK, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in the United States, whether it's in Canada. The diaspora community should let these governments know about our concerns, about our situation at home.
And Crispin, not cutting you off here, but just to chime in here and strengthen that point that you're making, sir. When I speak to some people, even in our region, about our plight back home, some of these people they are sort of dumbfounded. They are saying that they never knew that what I am telling them exists in Dominica. And so you're making a very fundamental point that apart from the resources and money and whatever it is, the people out there, the diaspora out there, must play their part as well in spreading Dominica's message far and wide as to the things that affect us, be it negatively or positively. So I agree with you.
Well, Lofty, I think that there's another dimension to our political reality in Dominica, and that is the critical non-existence of civics education. We have a generation of young people who I don't fault them for the CO. I mean, young people like, to experience music and dance and all of that. And that's important part of growing up. But their values, there's a value vacuum in Dominica because our young people are not exposed to civic education. And consequently, our young people are not able to make the right choices about who they vote for and when and why they vote. We have to go beyond the stage of, we do what our parents do. But in a lot of cases, I'll tell you, our parents have missed the boat. And young people must take the bull by the horn and get sensitized, begin to read, begin to understand Dominica history. Most of our young people have no notion of what happened before the year 2000. And if they don't get that sensitization, and I also put that at the feet of the political parties in the opposition, I think that they are not doing enough political education. And that is something that we really have to begin to look at. That the political education is not the preserve of one party. I'll stop here.
All right, indeed. Thank you very much. Zed, it is 7:30. I know you want to come in terms of talking to some of the, at least that situation that the previous caller spoke of in terms of where those resources or who will be handling or managing, as it will. Sorry, yeah, the resources on the ground. But just before you go there, Zed, let me just give our listeners a treat as to some of the effects of corruption that we have been talking about tonight and other times. Let me just give them at least a treat, and then we'll get back to you in terms of answering that question. When this contribution gets to Dominica, which organizations on the ground primarily will be responsible for their management/handling. Take a listen, people. Take a listen. Very instrumental.
Corruption is a vile disease that sucks and drains the health out of something good. Corruption in society is an evil moral infection that keeps community in a state of perpetual sickness. Corruption is a moral virus. It's so potent it leaves its host sick, lethargic, and unable to realize and accomplish all that a well person can. Where corruption thrives, poverty and not prosperity thrives. Wealth is grabbed into the greedy, grubby hands of those who get fat on the toil and labor of good people. Corruption benefits, only temporarily, those who participate in it. Everyone else is a victim of the theft, the deceit, the dishonesty, and the lies that corruption feeds on. You need to know that a corrupt person is stealing from you. Corruption is filthy work and despicable acts of treachery done under the table and behind closed doors. Corruption is a disgusting shame. Corruption keeps a nation back from true development and from progress. Wise investors steer clear of a corrupt environment. They would rather put their resources into a place where the playing field of opportunity is equal for all and not bent towards feeding the financial lust of corrupt, lying, cheating, thieving politicians and government officials. How many wonderful development projects have been lost because the investors didn't want to do business in a swamp of evil? When those great projects go to another nation or to some other place, we all lose. Believe me when I tell you that corruption steals from you, it steals from all of us. Corruption plunders the nation's wealth. Corrupt people compromise on truth, equity, and fairness, choosing instead to feed off the short-term benefits of crookedness, exploitation, and financial perversion. Corruption is not just a personal matter, it's a culture. It's a way of life, not just for individual people, but for companies, communities, governments, and nations. Corrupt nations, hiding behind large companies, will seek to invest in other weak nations in order to take over the assets of the nation that they've invested into. They will provide financial loans to a nation for the much needed infrastructure, and they will do it with assets that they provide. They will sign contracts by lining the pockets of rotten government officials who participate in this kind of corruption and are then held hostage by their own deceit and greed. Corruption is nothing less than a form of theft and national robbery. A corrupt person steals from everyone in society. We all lose when corruption is rampant. Those who participate in corruption have chosen evil over good, lies over truth, and personal gain over well-being of all. To be corrupt means to be rotten. When meat is corrupt, it's rotten and it stinks. Rotten meat can't be eaten. When a person is corrupt, he's rotten and unfit for a place in the community. A corrupt person should be jailed in order to protect society from the vile deeds of the corrupt person. Government should be protecting us from the foul results of corruption instead of being the proponents and participants in corruption. When corruption is systemic, when it's a culture and a way of life, when corruption thrives, it destroys the health of the community and nation. Now, let me tell you something. Defeating corruption is a very difficult thing. The love of money is the root of all evil, the Bible says. People who love money will do almost anything to get it. Those who choose to stand up against corruption, you need to know that we're going to be involved in a war. We will be threatened, vilified, intimidated, marginalized, and ridiculed. These kind of people who stand up against corruption will often feel alone, as if they are the problem instead of the solution. Corruption can only be defeated when enough people have had enough and decide to do something about it.
All right, folks, that is indeed a very, very straight to the point, very sharpshooter in terms of the plight that we have been facing in Dominica for some time. And I just thought I would let you hear it into your hearing this evening. Brother Zed Lloyd, my apology for, butchering
man, one love.
but it really, that 4 minutes clips from this brotherly corruption and trying to stamp it out, it really epitomizes the discussion we're having tonight and what needs to be done.
Yeah. Lofty, you see, I want to start from the young people first. I heard this notion on Matt's program a lot of time. People say, well, you have to get a truck of music and you have to, that is a disrespect to the young people, Lofty. The issue with young people is young people do not take information just given to them on an informational kind of platform. You have to be, you have to have an impression on young people. You have to be emotional about the message. And that is something that has been lacking in the struggle. The presenters in these things, they don't understand that the emotional quotient is critical. It's critical. When you deal with struggle, it's not just come in and give information. When you come into that podium, you have to prepare yourself. It's a package. You understand? And young people, what they gravitate to is that there has to be that connection. You can't just come and move them with just telling them facts. You understand? And that is what is missing with these young people, because they are spontaneous, Lofty. They are the craziest thing in the struggle. They are the best asset. You see that CO thing and all that thing, that is asset to the struggle. But the leaders have to understand what they have in front of them with these young people. There's a certain way you have to communicate with them, because you turn them on, it's over, It's over. The same people you see there, the CO, you turn them on, it's over. Now, Lofty. So let's talk about the financial runnings, Lofty. People think when we talk of struggle, they think it's a big whole heap of money. Lofty, listen. 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, one of the biggest movements we had in Roseau was on the Bayfront. On the Bayfront, Lofty, basic people, little community people out in the diaspora, they provided buses to their communities, Lofty. Simple thing, little money, it's not no big money. You understand? What has been plaguing this movement of bringing people together is resources. The local organizations do not have those money to pay for buses, money for water, money to transport. The people want to come. They're not as afraid as people say they are, but they do not have the resources to come together when we need them to come together. So it's not a complicated thing. You have the ERC. Bosso and these guys are ready. They're trying to put a bank account together. Dominica is so complicated. You have to make an appointment with the National Bank to be able to open an account in Dominica right now, Lofty. That's how crazy the place is. You understand? So we put it. Yeah, go ahead, Addy. You want to say something?
Actually, that's a very good point, Zed. And I think it's something that has been missing a lot. And I think the general public really needs to know that. In order for an organization to open a bank account, civic organization, political, I think civic also.
Yeah.
They have to get permission from what's his name? Blackmore.
Yeah.
I mean, this is no joke. In order for these guys to establish an organization, because in order for you to get the documents to open the bank account, to get that done, that should have been within the registry, and you could, there are certain things that you need, and then you can establish an organization. Right now, they think they passed a law in Parliament that you have permission from Blackmore.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And people are not talking about those things enough. They need to let the public know those things, because these types of law only benefit this party that has been there for 25 years, Lofty. How can you tell me that you have a country where People need to establish, civic organizations need to establish and get the proper documents in order to open a bank account so people can freely wire money to those accounts. They cannot do that, Lofty. They cannot. This is, I mean, these kinds of things are just they get to me. Another, I sorry, Lord, I'm sharing just a little bit.
Yeah, man, go ahead.
And it's not. You're telling me that we have a culture. Go back to our culture, right? And how that calypso thing where the very young people we talk about can express themselves. You listen to those calypsos, they're willing to sing those calypsos. They know what they're facing. You're depriving them from using the stadium, but you can bring some African African Nigerian priestess or priest to come and have concert in the stadium, yet a place where you can accommodate so many people and really again build that cultural aspect of Dominica. They can do it. These are the kinds of things that sometimes these guys are dealing with, but we need to put those things out in the open. They need to be able to establish those things so people can donate easily. Not everybody wants to go to Western Union physically to go. If I want to wire money to Dominican, I don't even need to go to Western Union. I simply do it on my computer. MoneyGram, same thing. You can WhatsApp, you can Zelle, you can Cash App. All these ways, PayPal, so many ways, which will make it so convenient for the diaspora out there who can donate. But they are depriving people from the groups at home from doing that. That's another form of persecution, Lofty. Just
real talk. So you see, Lofty, so what I'm telling people is like, it's not a big complicated thing. We're going to have some radio funds organized on cue. ERC is going to do their thing. We're just telling people, get ready to contribute. It's not a big thing. A bus in Dominica is $2 You know what I mean? $2 we talking US. That means 3-4 people can sponsor a bus to their village. They can contribute something at the radio funds. So it's not that complicated. But the point that I'm trying to tell you is we have to make that commitment this time around. We have to make that commitment. And sometime in February, when these guys get their account together, we're going to start having those things. They're going to take place on the radio. They're going to take place. You have to be mobilized and start making that contribution. Like I said, deal with your community if you want to deal with your community. The little domino clubs, the little Beth circle, you and your 4 friends who pong Beth, and all you from the same village, or you can sponsor a bus. You understand? It's like those simple little things, these little community concepts that we're going to defeat this thing with. It's not the complicated kind of, you understand? So I just want to tell people it's not that complicated. It's not mean you have to go and find $1,000. No, it means you can collectively start putting those little $25 and $20 together, because when they convert in Dominica, they make a lot of difference. You understand? So that movement is going to happen, because you see this march that coming there, it's going to be problem in Dominica, and we have to make sure that these guys, the ERC, your other organizations, if it's your political you want to give to, that's fine also, but we want to ensure that the Electoral Reform Commission has some money to be able to function, to be able to provide water to our people, because the next time we go to Roseau, we're not going to Roseau on no picnic, The next time we go to Roseau, we're not going to Roseau on no picnic. The only way we're going to stop and deal with Roosevelt spirit, when we go to Roseau, we have to go to Roseau ready that when we leave Roseau, what we came to accomplish is accomplished. You understand? So I'm saying, don't think it's no $500 we're asking you for. Don't think it's no $1,000. We're telling you those little monies, they add up. They add up. And if we have 3-4 radio funds on the radio, if Matt or whatever, call in. Pay your Zelle, pay your thing. If you want to deal with your representative in your community, that's good too. 4 of all you come together, make a 200 happen. Sponsor a bus in your village. Make sure the people can leave, because we need 4 or 5 buses per village. We get those things organized. The people will be there, because Dominicans are frustrated with this government. It's just people are broke and people need the resource. They need support. If they see us giving them the support, they're going to be mobilized. They're going to act. You understand? So do not think it's no big money that is being asked of you. Just get ready to make those small contributions 3-4 times. You know what I mean? And we can pull this thing off. It's not that complicated.
Thank
It's
you.
not that complicated.
Thank you, Brother Zed. Well said indeed. Let's take a musical break. We'll be back in just a bit. Let's hear from the man Nasio. Vain thoughts.
Full of confusion, seeking a solution for the headed to destruction. Lord, Lord, trapped in their illusion, with their minds full of confusion, seeking for solution, and they're headed to destruction. They're like the wax that is burnt at the bottom fire. They're like the chaff that is driven by the winds. These are the children who run astray.
To all the elderly folks listening and tuned in at this time, good evening to you.
So they couldn't seem to find.
The sick and the shorting as well.
So they trapped along, so lost in their illusion, with their heads full of confusion.
To the young, yes, the very young people,
And their
it is said you are the future of this country. Good evening to you.
trapped in their illusion, with their minds full of confusion.
Just in case you're tuning in at this hour, it is quarter to the hour of 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, we have to pack our bag and make some tracks.
To distract.
We have been having a very candid conversation, an active-oriented conversation, that is, or an action-oriented conversation with Mr. Crispin Gregoire, Miss Adelaide Paul, and Brother Zed Lloyd. As to the ways or way that you, yes, you, can contribute to the struggle, the ongoing struggle in Dominica.
Drifting in their
A
thoughts.
special appeal to you guys out there, especially those of you living outside of this country.
Their eyes shall see, for their minds shall not understand that. Bounded in the way, signs and wonders they seek from a God in the sky.
Brother Nasir Fontaine, you and the family, good evening to you, my bro. Thanks for providing the music. Huh? One or two more lines from Nasir and we get back to a live panel.
Lord, 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 they're like the children that run astray. Oh, Lord. And they couldn't seem to find your way back home. Oh, Lord. They're like the wax that is melted for the fire. Seek not the ways of truth, but the doctrines of the scribes and Pharisees. Yeah, trust in their illusion, with their minds full of confusion.
What a powerful number indeed from this brother.
Seeking for solution, for the headed to destruction.
All right, folks, in the interest of time, I may just give you guys this one and I'll exit when we leave here at 8 o'clock. But in the interest of time, let's get back to the live panelists here. Yes, Brother Crispin, your thoughts based on, the conversation so far in terms of your winding up comments?
Yes, well, Lofty, I think that we're at a very important juncture in our political history, and that is this fight for a level playing field in Dominica as far as the electoral laws is concerned is very, very important. It's not about we're not putting in place laws for today. We're putting in place laws for the next 40 years. Because the electoral laws that we have, they're old. They go way back, even way before independence. And they really need to be reformed. But it's important for these laws to create a level playing field so that every political party has an equal chance. The reality of Dominica today is that you have a ruling party that has mobilized financial support from whoever, we don't know. And they are fighting not to disclose that. In fact, for me, the two most important things about the electoral reform is two arenas. One is there must be campaign finance regulations. We cannot talk about electoral reform if we don't have that. And secondly, on the question of who is able to vote, my view is that the only way you're going to have a proper voters list that's credible is one that comes from a re-registration of voters. I mean, imagine there are probably a good 15,000 dead people on this list that we have. How can we remove that? If in 25 years we've not done it, when are we going to do it? And this nonsense about confirming your name on the list, that will not get us a voters list that we can bank on to give us a level playing field. So those two things are linked, because the finance and having a proper list, and that goes back to the diaspora. I would say to the people in the diaspora who are recruited to come to vote, do you pay taxes in Dominica? Tell me which polling district you vote in. It can't be the polling district that you used to vote in before you migrated. You don't live in that community anymore. How can you expect to go and vote in Dominica and you don't live there? So these are some of the things that I want the diaspora people to really do some soul searching. I'm speaking to those people who have accepted tickets from the Labour Party to go down to Dominica to vote. Why? Why are you taking a ticket to go down there to vote? Is it that you're so poor that you can't buy your own ticket to go down to Dominica?
Crispin, on that note, I just need you to respond to Roosevelt Skerrit, where he says sometimes that what you're alluding to now, it is basically taking away Dominicans' right to vote and being on that list that, their forefathers died for. Speak to that, please.
Yeah, I don't believe in this notion of disenfranchisement that is being promoted by the ruling party. If you are not resident in Dominica, you really should not be on the voters list. That does not mean that you don't have a chance to be on that list that day when you decide to go to Dominica and live for 90 days. Most of us in the diaspora will not go to Dominica and wait there for 90 days to get our names on the list. So why are we being used? Why are we allowing ourselves to be used by politicians who are in power? That is their only reason why they're giving you a ticket, is to give themselves advantage at the polls. And we have to begin in the diaspora to think critically about what we are doing to our homeland. And until we can come to, the onus is on us in the diaspora to see that we don't live there, we support our country, we love our country. But when it comes to political voting, we are not there. Unless you're a student studying abroad, it's only students who are studying abroad who, to me, would have that opportunity to be on the voters list, because they're not physically resident in other countries. But when it comes to those of us who've been here, and I wouldn't even bother about 5 years. You don't live in Dominica, you don't pay taxes there, then you're not supposed to be on the voters list, period.
All right, Crispin, in the limited time that we have, I'll just give you some time to sort of bring the conversation to a wrap, as we must go in just a bit.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I think the diaspora is an important aspect of our country. That's an extension of our country outside Dominica. And the diaspora has an important role to play. And we should make sure that those of us in the diaspora think about political change in our country, because right now, where Dominica is headed, we're headed to a dictatorship. And we should not, as a country committed to democracy and multi-party democracy, that's not consistent with what is happening. Thank you.
All right, indeed. Thank you very much, Brother Crispin, for your very profound thoughts tonight. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, Miss Paul, your final closing comments, as it were.
Sure, Lofty. I think when we were someone earlier mentioned the talent and the skills that the diaspora has, and I know that there are many Dominicans who have tried sharing those talents and skills in Dominica to really develop the country. And again, because of the political system, they were denied and deprived. And the only reason is that there is this notion, I guess, by the ruling party that if they bring these brains to Dominica, that the people will become too wise and they will take them out of power. I mean, what we're doing here, everything comes full circle, because we need electoral reform to have a better to have fairer elections, to give all the people a chance to rule. We can't have a party, a party and just one person in power for that long. Crispin continues to say that we are heading towards a dictatorship. That is where I will strongly disagree with Crispin. Dominica is a dictatorship. 25 years of one party and 20 years of one man, finding every possible way to manipulate elections, which is what he does every single election cycle. Whether he calls it 2 years after or 5 years after or 3 years after, that is what he does. So, and every system, look at how many people have taken him to court. Every system is compromised. There are no checks and balances. The only thing we have right now is the people. If we can get the people to rise, if we can support the people to do that, if we can inspire and motivate and support them with the resources, those of us out there who know that Dominica can be a much better place for for all Dominicans, whether they're at home or whether they're abroad, we have to continue that. We have to reach out to your friends at home, reach out to, whether if you support a particular political party, whether it's the United Workers Party, the Freedom Party, or the APP Party, reach out to people who are willing to go out there and do the work. If we don't know who the candidates are, reach out to the leaders of the party. If you want to support civic organizations, you have the ERC, who have these people, they put themselves on the line. They volunteer their time. They don't get paid for that. Support them. Give them the resources that they need so they can go out and do the necessary things. You have the CCM that has been around for so long. The CCM, they've been there working and still on the front line. And there are many other organizations, civic organizations, who are willing and ready to do the necessary work. But again, they need our help. We are all Dominicans. There should never be an us versus them, or them versus us, or overseas versus Dominican, because we are all the same people. So please, diaspora, I am just appealing to you. Reach out to somebody. When the call comes out, please open your hearts, open your hands, and help. Thank you.
Much food for thought, Adi. Thank you very, very much. Again, very profound contribution tonight. Thank you indeed. Brother Zed Lloyd, your wrapping up comments.
Lofty, I want to start with you. You've been on that front line for a long time, brother, a long time. And you're still there, bro. You don't give up. You haven't stopped, and it's that kind of spirit that keeps folks like myself and Adi and others going to, Lofty.
I read a thing that they did that sort of really made an impact on me. When I get tired, I don't give up. I just take a rest. That's all. And come back.
And so I just want people like Bosso, Bosso not even 100% healthy, bro. And Bosso still there. Bosso just going like a clock, like a ever ready, Mackenzie, all these brothers, folks like Lennox and those guys, no persecution, still there, not giving up, enough inspiration. So I just want to tell us, man, let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. We're going to try our best out here to mobilize the people. We're going to start doing that social media move. It's carnival season, so we're just letting it bubble a little bit. But we're going to do this thing, Lofty. I'm telling you, we're going to do this thing because you see, it is not a whole heap of money to move our people to stop this thing. It's not a whole heap of money. And we can do this. And I know we can do it. And we're going to do it. Because it's about time after 20 years that we have to teach Roosevelt Skerrit a lesson in Dominica. It's overdue. It's overdue. God bless, brother.
And Lofty, I just want to tell everybody, seriously, when you're doing your social media posts, hashtag 25 years of hard labor. No, for real. 25 years of hard labor. Hashtag 25 years of hard labor. That's
I love it. I love it.
Bang on the money in terms of time. 8 o'clock in Dominica and the rest of our Eastern Caribbean. So that's it for us tonight here on the CCM program, the Concerned Citizen Movement program, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Where their minds full of confusion, seeking for solution.
The panelist tonight, former UN ambassador from Dominica, Mr. Crispin Gregoire. A female patriot from Dominica who will not relent, Miss Adelaide Paul, aka Adi. And well-known, outspoken Zed Lloyd.
Lord, Lord, Lord. So they couldn't.
That was your panelist tonight.
So they trapped along some.
Much food for thought, I must say, in terms of trying to re-engage or reignite the diaspora in terms of you guys' continued contribution to the struggle on the ground. So all of you on the live feed, Marshall Lawrence, Justina James. Well, yes, there's a Juanita Prince as well. Viva Mamu, Norris Charles, Anitha Adams Bernard, Mr. Ferdinand Lawrence and crew, Hendrix Ismail. All of you contributed tonight on the live feed. Thank you very much for your eyes and ears each and every time.
Drifting in their thoughts, seeking rest and finding home.
Just before I bring down the curtains on things here, I got a note from Mr. Joshua Francis. And that note reads, it reads, join the United Progressive Party in Maho River, Kalinago territory tomorrow, Saturday, 8th February. A new approach, a new message, and a new vision. Come listen to the simple diagnosis of what is wrong and a simple prescription as to what is needed to be done. It is about we the people, our environment, our culture, our home, our children, our future, just to mention. Come listen to inspired speakers with love. A note from Mr. Joshua Francis and the UPP. A meeting tomorrow, as it were, in the Kalinago territory, Maho River to be precise, from 6 p.m. So all of you in that neck of the wood, Kalinago, Casabruce, and the environs, the UPP is asking for your support. And Dominicans by extension. So folks, that is it for me here. I got to pack my bag and make that track. Saying a pleasant good evening to all of you tuned in earlier.
seeking some shelter from the US.
Another edition of the Concerned Citizen Movement program right here on Q95, the big station in Dominica. Whatever is left of your Friday night, do enjoy. Bye-bye. I love you.
Let's the ball falling to the bottom.
The views expressed during this program are not necessarily those of WISE Q95 FM Radio. WISE Q95 FM Radio has not been able to independently verify the factual correctness or the allegations and statements made during the course of this program and cannot vouch for their accuracy. Therefore, WISE Q95 FM Radio will not accept any responsibility or liability for the statements or allegations made in the course of this program.
Nice again.